Hi, today is April 30th, 2020. We are still in the midst of the coronavirus crisis, and I wanted to talk to you today about some of the innovative technologies that I've been using that I think have helped to rescue my practice, maintain it, and keep it going during the crisis. So here's our agenda and our learning objectives for today. Some of the hard lessons that I've learned from the COVID-19 crisis. Some of the lessons I've learned before the crisis, things that I've learned using dental monitoring, how I've adapted to the current situations, and maybe some new lessons for the future and new solutions that you might consider for your practice too. So let's get started. So hard lessons from the COVID-19 crisis. So I think we've reached an inflection point where some of these digital technologies that, at least that I've used in my practice, are probably going to be things that are going to be here to stay. For example, virtual consultations, remote monitoring. I think that for myself and many doctors, I've done very quickly during the shutdown things that I've only, really mused about in the past, like virtual consultations. And surprise, surprise, it took me less than a week to get up and running with virtual consultations once I kind of got my button gear. So I think that we've reached this inflection point, and I think that as much as there's a crisis, I think we can go one of two ways. But I think that if we adapt and use some of these technologies now and going forward, not only can we survive, but I think we could also thrive. So what are some of the hard lessons that I've learned personally? Well, the world in your practice can change in an instant. The cash flow spigot can be rapidly turned off. The steady stream of new patient exams that you've become used to and perhaps take for granted get cut off instantaneously. Suddenly you can't pay your staff or your office expenses. Up until now, the traditional model of in-office patient care, it seemed tried and true until it isn't. Now, I also want to make the comment, too, that it's not just a pandemic. I mean, suppose you had a fire in your office, or there was a hurricane or some other natural disaster. I mean, I think there's lots of things that could affect you more on a local level than, let's say, this global crisis. But I think there's lots of things to consider that maybe could give you insurance against future shutdowns or future, whether they're natural disasters or whether they're things more locally, like I said, like a fire or a flood in your office. So for right now, again, April 30th, I'm in Westchester, New York. It looks like we're probably going to be shut down at least for another month. A change in our traditional business models is required. And I always try to find some silver lining. There's lots of dark clouds right now. You have people dying and the economic issues and so many things. But hopefully I still think that maybe there are some things to learn and some silver linings. So what are some lessons that I've learned in the past with dental monitoring? So why did I become an early adopter of dental monitoring 2 years ago? So 2 years ago, I was at the AAO meeting annual session in Washington, D.C., saw a lecture given by Terry Sulky, and signed up pretty much on the spot. I saw this technology as something that I thought was amazing, and I thought it would dovetail really nicely with my clear aligner treatment. It definitely, using remote technology for monitoring of treatment, it seemed to sync beautifully with the needs and wants of millennials and Generation Z, the Uber generation. It also synced with the emerging digital workflow efficiencies in my practice, and there's lots of video masterclass videos in Aligner Insider that talk about how to become efficient, how to use digital technology to really ramp up the efficiency of your practice. And I saw the remote monitoring capabilities as a really nice extension of that. I saw the potential to hold patients more accountable for their clear aligner treatment. And also in Aligner Insider, there are a series of lectures looking at the psychology of compliance. And we're in the compliance game, and there's a lot of psychology around why patients don't follow instructions. It's a normal thing. So the more we can use technology to perhaps hold patients accountable, like Weight Watchers does, when you have to go every week and step on the scale, Weight Watchers does that because their clients are more successful in their weight losses. So I thought I at least mused that I've used that word twice today. I theorized that I think that I would get more compliance, and I also theorized that the accountability accountability, that the increase in accountability would hopefully reduce treatment time and the number of additional aligners. And I'm still measuring this, but at least my preliminary data shows that it's both reducing treatment time for patients and it's also reducing the number of times that we have to rescan them for refinement. So all good things. Certainly, I recognize that remote treatment monitoring would reduce in-office appointments. Now, what my goal here is to reduce in-office appointments, but not reduce quality of care. I am still looking to be the best orthodontist that I can be. I'm looking for excellent results on all my patients. So I'm not necessarily looking to crank them out. I'm looking to give the same excellent care, but use technology to reduce in-office appointments to be more efficient. But I never dreamed, 2 years ago, that dental monitoring might save my butt in a pandemic. So what are the rewards? So look, there's the wow factor, and I don't think that's something that should be discounted. For those of you who maybe who know that I treat a lot of my teenagers with Invisalign, you may go back to your practice and you may find that you get pushback from parents about Invisalign for all the reasons that I've discussed before, that parents think that the kids aren't going to wear them and lose them and all that kind of stuff. But when you say to a parent, look, I think your child's going to do great with Invisalign treatment, but on top of it, we're going to do a virtual remote house call using your child's smartphone every week. So my staff and I will help to monitor your child so that you and your spouse can go on to other things in your life. Parents love that, and it's helped to increase my Invisalign share of chair with teenagers, which is something that I'm looking to do. So the parents really are amazed. I don't charge extra for this for dental monitoring. So basically, when we say to a parent, look, we're going to use your smartphone, your child's smartphone, to monitor their treatment and hopefully get better results faster, they go, wow, that's great. What's not to like? So it definitely helps moms to say yes to Invisalign teen treatment. It significantly reduced the need for in-office appointments, so that means that I can either increase my caseload or perhaps maybe take some more time off. And there's other opportunities for, let's say, whether it's lecturing for me or whether you want to open up another office. So I think that by being efficient with the Invisalign thing and the dental monitoring thing, it can give you lots of opportunities, again, whether you're looking to open multiple offices or maybe whether you're at that point where you'd maybe like to spend a little bit less time at the chair. Now, certainly, and during a pandemic, I don't think that's a bad thing. I mean, I think that the more we can treat patients remotely, it's less likelihood of exposure to you and your staff and your other patients, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm still in control of my patients, even though the office is shut down. I can easily communicate to them using the dental monitoring app. So patients have a question, they can remote message me and my staff, and we can send them elastics, or we can arrange for curbside delivery of more aligners, and they're all good things. My dental monitoring coordinator can continue to work from home to try to embrace some of the 4-hour workweek philosophy. That's a great book from Tim Ferriss. So lessons learned. The first rule of any technology used in a business is that automation applied to an efficient operation will magnify the efficiency. The second is that automation applied to an inefficient operation will magnify the inefficiency. So it's incumbent upon each doctor to make sure that they have efficient systems, and if you have efficient systems, which there's no reason not to, using something like technology like dental monitoring and clear aligner treatment with Invisalign can magnify that efficiency. Now, who are today's patients? And I would imagine that in another 10 or 20 years, people are going to have a lot of neck problems because this seems to be the pose. But these are our patients. So what do we know about them? We know that millennials are the biggest generation in this country, with an estimated 83.1 million people, compared to 75 million baby boomers, and that's from the U.S. Census. So the boomers, which is what I am, are being replaced by the millennials and Generation X. So these are our patients, and more and more, this is what the country looks like. 70% of millennials would welcome the use of an app provided by their doctors to manage their health. They value convenience above everything else. They prefer digital communication. They are tech natives. They love constant feedback. They they want it all and they want it now. So, it may be frustrating for some of us, that whole want it all, want it now, but why not take lemons and make, I don't know if it's lemons, but take the current situation and make lemonade. If this is the demographic of a vast majority of our patients, and this is what we want, why not take advantage of this and provide treatment in a way that speaks to them and still allows you to have exquisite control of your cases and provide them with good outcomes. So let's take a look at dental monitoring. So for those, again, who don't know much about dental monitoring, patients take remote scans using their smartphone, and my staff and I have a dashboard where we could pull up the images that the patients have taken. And at the top here, you could see a timeline. So this gives you sort of treatment at a glance. A green circle means that the patient got to go, meaning that the AI recognized that there was good tracking, like in a case like this, and it automatically told the patient that it was time to move on to their next aligner. The red squares represent no-goes, where the AI saw an area of an unseat where a tooth wasn't tracking and guided the patient to stay in their aligner for a few extra days, use Chewies, and then take a scan in 3 days. And as you can see, this patient's doing really well, maybe a little bit more dicey here, but fundamentally, when you see this much green, you have got a nice compliant patient. You can see here there's a little gap. This was a refinement, so the patient finished their first series of aligners here, and then started off with their next series of aligners here. You could see that right out of the gate, there's a no-go. That's automatic. So when patients basically put a new series of aligners in, they do a scan, a baseline scan on day one, they'll automatically get a no-go since they haven't worn their aligners enough. It'll say you haven't worn your aligners enough, do another scan in a week, and then the patient's doing fine. So this is what our dashboard looks like. So here's the workflow. The digital workflow for remote monitoring. So doctor and staff has an online dashboard and communication center. You can build your own protocols. There are stock protocols built in, and honestly, they've gotten really good at that. The stock protocols, my recommendation if you sign up with DM is to use the standard protocols. It's based off of all their clients and millions of scans, and they work really well, but they're always customizable by you. The patient has a mobile app on their smartphone, which can monitor a variety of factors, tracking, hygiene, and there's 180 different factors that the AI can see. And the analysis is provided by the artificial intelligence, which sends messages to your patients, and then patients communicate back and forth with you with questions, and then you get a report and instructions sent to your team. Now, it doesn't mean that this just runs itself. So there are situations, for example, like this patient, where they're getting goes, where my dental monitoring coordinator checks everything, and doesn't even tell me, and that's how I've set it up. In situations where there's no goes, in particular, where like in this situation where you see 2 no goes, then we have decision trees where there would be more direct input from my dental monitoring coordinator, both to the patient and to me, but we have that all set up in advance. So let's take a look a little bit more closely and see what this looks like. This is my smartphone. So I'm a patient, an Invisalign patient and a dental monitoring patient. So there's my app. So when you launch the app, this is what it looks like. And instant feedback. So, for example, it might say something like, Dear Barry, you're doing great. You're now ready to switch to your next aligners. See you soon. So all kinds of information right from the app. In addition, this is patients' favorite feature. They can actually see their treatment progress on their phone in real time, so they get a little more from before to after. Which is surprisingly, it's patient's favorite feature. And I'll tell you, if you've ever had a patient that says to you, Doc, I don't think the Invisalign's working, I don't really see any improvement, that makes that go away, because patients can see whenever they want, they can see their progress, and that's been a great help for us to reduce the number of times that patients complain to us about things not working when in actuality they are. So that instant feedback for patient is again their favorite feature. Automated messages. So, for example, Dear Barry, after reviewing your last scan, your doctor points out you can now change your aligners. Your aligners fit well. Great job. See you soon for your next scan. So that happens automatically. The AI is super picky. In fact, the AI is more picky than I am. So it will, if there's even a slight unseat where a tooth isn't tracking perfectly, the AI is going to put that patient into a situation where they're going to stay in the same aligners. It's going to automatically prompt them to use Chewies or whatever you want, if you use acceleration techniques, whatever it is, and then prompt them to scan in a certain number of days that you've defined. In my office, they would rescan in 3 days. Instant communication. Certainly in a pandemic, this is a nice thing. So again, you might get something like this from a patient. There's a little chat box, and the patient can write something to you like, Hi, Dr. Glaser. I lost my aligners. What do I do? And even in a lockdown, like I'm not quite sure if a patient's at home all the time, how you can lose your aligners, but it still happens. But you can get a variety of questions. I need more elastics, or I'm at the end of a series of aligners, or aligners cracked. But they can reach out to us, and my staff and I. And again, let me show you where that feature is. Right here, they just tap on that, send us a message, and then we can respond. It's a really nice thing at any time, especially for this generation, in particular in a pandemic. So, for Tim Ferriss, one of my favorite authors who wrote The 4-Hour Work Week, you need to know what your unique strengths are and be willing to delegate. Take time, and now this is not from Tim Ferriss, this is from me. Take time to create your own customized, unique protocols, and don't be afraid to alter them when needed. Define your priorities and eliminate things that aren't working for you. Personalize the messages you send to your patients, and that's all doable within the dental monitoring dashboard. And one of the important things to do once you start using dental monitoring and start to work with your staff as dental monitoring coordinators is to create decision trees. So this would be an example of a decision tree. So the AI detects a slight unseat. Marisol, my DMC, sees that for a patient. So what's going to happen automatically is that patient's going to get an auto message sent from DM. They're going to get a go. Now that's something that I've done. In all first instances of a slight unseat, we allow the patient to move forward. I found that so many patients, because the AI is so sensitive, so many patients were getting slight unseats that we were unnecessarily slowing down their treatment. So the first time they're going to get an auto message, they're going to go on to the next aligner, and then the dental monitoring coordinator is going to mark in the dental monitoring app that message is reviewed, and there's going to be no input from me. Now, suppose there's unseats that are still present. So let's say the next time around, let's say it's an upper lateral where there was a slight unseat. Now it's become a noticeable unseat, so it's worse. So if it's the same tooth as a previous unseat, now my dental monitoring coordinator knows to speak to me directly. We will pull that up on the dashboard. I will review that. The patient's going to get a message to use Chewies. So, and then I'm going to make a decision. So if let's say it's a case where it's a lateral not tracking, patient's a class 2 case, they're wearing their elastics, everything is going along great, I may decide to just ignore that and pick it up in refinement. I may also decide to schedule that payment for early refinement or a recovery technique. In particular, let's say patient's coming down the end of treatment, they've got only a few aligners to go, and then we're expecting to be done. If we have a noticeable unseat still present, we're going to notify that patient. They're going to come in, and we'll probably do something like a bootstrap elastic. So the patient will be called. So you can see how this kind of works. If it's a different tooth from the other unseat, again, we can make a decision whether to ignore it or whether to schedule recovery techniques. So you make, I would say we probably have a half a dozen of these for the most common situations. And this way, my dental monitoring coordinator knows what to do. She knows specifically in which situations she needs to notify me, and she knows which situations specifically to call patients and when not to. And that way it helps to prevent you from having to recreate the wheel for every situation. Loss of attachment. Marisol will always talk to me, and then I'll make a decision. If it's a non-critical tooth, maybe it was a little rotation attachment on a second molar, and the second molar is tracking fine, we're probably going to ignore it. If it's a critical tooth, like a lateral, upper lateral, we probably would then have we'll call the patient, and my dental monitoring coordinator knows to automatically order a template from Align and have that patient, and then she'll speak to the front desk. That patient will get an appointment for the following week to come in and have that attachment replaced. So again, all thought about ahead of time. What about situations of poor oral hygiene? So let's take a look at this decision tree. So if the patient has poor oral hygiene, the AI will detect that and it will automatically send a message to the patient to improve their hygiene. If the poor oral hygiene continues, so let's say a week later the patient does their next scan and we see more than one instance, then my DMC will know to call the parents or the patient to notify them and to schedule an appointment for oral hygiene instruction. She will also notify me and will make a note in the patient's chart. So for any of these decision trees that I have here, feel free to pause the video, copy them, you can use them for yourself, and obviously you should customize them to your own needs. In the second part of our series that's coming up next, we will talk about other ways that we have responded to the pandemic. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.